This was, I think, your long trade here. Because this is like in technician land, you'd call this like an atom bottom, where it's just one directional, use your imagination. And then we would call this like an Eve, or if it's like multiple bottoms, we call it a Steve. Again, use your imagination. But the point being that actually this is a pretty typical technical setup. W bottoms, then W's on other sides of trend lines. Not a big surprise. And then boom, up she goes. We've talked, higher time frames. We're coming into a pretty important level here. We have done 50% bounce of the entire range. So I don't think you can make an argument that Bitcoin's actually cheap anymore. I think actually I would actually say Bitcoin is now, based on the technician, WD Gann, if you think about waves in the ocean, you think about orbits of planets, that kind of thing, we're in balance right now. That's the irony of it all, is that actually this is probably fair value for one Bitcoin. Isn't that ironic? So this was ridiculous, stupid. Oh, don't mind technical analysis. Just buy and you'll make money. I mean, just dumb thinking. This is, oh, everything's going to zero. Sam Bankman Friedman's a big fraud, and everything about crypto is a big fraud. And now this is, well, it looks like the seesaw's in balance. So that's the irony of all of this. Calling tops or bottoms right here, I don't actually think that's in anybody's best interest. It could easily pop. I mean, reload zones. This red boxes. If we get up into, how does it go? The red zone is for immediate unloading of passengers. The green zone is for immediate loading of passengers. You can see passengers who got on the bus here down in the reload long zone. Well, they got paid. You can see where the shorting zone is. And what's interesting, I've shown you this repeatedly. It seems Bitcoin heading into its halvening event, which is coming up here in about 6 months or so, somewhere in that area. Bitcoin really loves to tag 61.8 of the previous range. So I still would use this as some sort of objective. The question is, gee whiz, we've come an awful long way here. Could we use a bit of pullback here to clean up this overboughtness? I think the answer is pretty straightforward. This is not cheap and it's not undervalued. I'd actually say a Bitcoin is fairly valued now just based on TA. So there's your backdrop. That's the backdrop that we're involved in right now. Bitcoin's neither overbought nor oversold on the longer term basis. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like banging the table that Bitcoin's cheap right now. I don't know. That's a tough one. If you're one of these traders, then I think you have to trade setups. You don't really have a choice. I mean, if you're an algo trader, then you're in and out and in and out and in and out. And, when we get a big move in one direction, of course, you'd like to see that the algo has you on the right side of the trade. you know? So, if you're an algo trader, you just gotta live by the sword. And sometimes it's fucking painful as hell to be an algo trader, but do the computers have any emotions? Do they care? I don't think so. But, if you're a manual trader, and of course I like to trade setups, which means I like to have, 3 unrelated reasons to justify taking a trade, you can use the algo as your sort of indicator confirmation signal. And sadly, the algo is actually bearish right now, so it's awfully tough to make the bull case at present. But of course that can flip back. What I would say is, well, I mean, you can see there's a major war going on in the market right now. Is this one of these ICT setups, market structure break, fair value, rally back into reload short zones? Maybe. I mean, it does look like, you could call it ICT, you could call it reload zone, you could call it spaghetti and meatballs. I don't care. And it doesn't surprise me that we ran into a bit of resistance up here. It doesn't surprise me one bit. At the same time, too, if you're a bull, well, it doesn't really surprise me that you've got, 1 higher low, 2 higher lows, 3 higher lows, and there's our bought long entry level, 25% of the anticipated range. There is your bot setup. Actually, this is a good chart because this shows you where, if we're going to dump, this was Mr. Fink's, I want a Bitcoin ETF. And then when we brought the market. This was, I want an ETF. Don't take Bitcoin down, you bastards. And then it just shot straight up here. And anybody who wanted to buy, you had to buy it right when he was saying that, or you missed it. This was, I think, your long trade here. Because this is like in technician land, you'd call this like an atom bottom, where it's just one directional, use your imagination. And then we would call this like an Eve, or if it's like multiple bottoms, we call it a Steve. Again, use your imagination. But the point being that actually this is a pretty typical technical setup. W bottoms, then W's on other sides of trend lines. Not a big surprise. And then boom, up she goes. If we have to give this, a portion of this rally back, and I mean, it's ebb and flow. I mean, you all know how capitalism works. Our first objective probably should be like Colin and the pump chasers. And it's interesting how 38.2 to 50% of this range takes us right back down against these most recent lows. And then you also got a big fat railroad tracks low there. Cute, nice candle body lows for trade location. I like that level if I was looking for some sort of short-term pivot on like a big, panic dump. Conversely, if the orgy continues, and like I said, we're actually getting into Santa Claus rally kind of window. Does Bitcoin really catch a bid because of Christmas? I don't know. That's a tough one. Might be interesting to look at where the open interest numbers are for things like the December Deribit futures. You might get an idea of where they want to take this market into the end of December. Just keep in mind those contracts also, they have like literally a December 31st expiry. But if they want to take this thing higher, then you can see how this range here, A to B, is setting up C to D, which would take us up into 100% projection levels, which is interesting because if this does keep fog and bombing its way higher, you can see 2.618. Does that look like chaos entering the market? Sure looks like it to me. And of course, if we resolve this bullishly, then next chaotic level should be 4669. And like we said, there's the AB equals CD level. And then if this thing goes into like orgy mode because fucking Biden comes out and says he's buying Bitcoins or whatever, you might get some absolute horrendous, just face rip spike all the way up top. But, that's the market. I'm not going to get into the business of predicting what's going to happen. What I'm just going to simply say is I'm following the chalk marks. And if you're a bull, well, setups are setting themselves up. And, you just got to live by the sword, die by the sword kind of idea. In this case, this would be like risking this window to make that window in profit. 3-to-1 risk reward. It's trader's life. At the same time, too, like I said, would it be realistic for markets to come back down into Colin's pump chaser zone back to long-term trend line support? Maybe this is a bear ABCD that's forming. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be outlandish. So I actually don't find it a surprise whatsoever that there's a huge fight here right at this reload short zone. And good old Mountain Man. You know what this is? I'll tell you exactly what this is. And it's funny because this is exactly 10-year anniversary. But this is literally Brian sitting in the Top Step Combine, trader room, whatever, we're trading crude oil. And Brian's buying his bot level because he believes in it, hook, line, and sinker, and he's going to risk against 3 lows. And there's Brandon, good old Mountain Man. He is short from exactly the same level. And he's like, well, my plan is to sell against the top end of ranges. 61.8, pay myself on dumps, move my stop to scratch. And if this thing pukes out, then you're toast, Brian, and I win. Like literally, there's an old expression in the world, right? The more things change, the more they stay exactly the same. And I got to say, folks, there's nothing new under the sun here. This is like literally history just going around in circles. So anyway, there is that image. And it was kind of funny. I was even tweeting out yesterday that we can, using fractals off the 4-hour, you can like call like a play-by-play as we're going here. And you can clearly see this is a very beautiful little inside bar reversal fail level, like right off of the Mountain Man level. And I basically tweeted out, bears got the ball from 42,872. And until we actually start seeing some bullish candles, bullish prints, inside bars, big tails, blah, 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 Yeah, Bears got the ball. So you can see how if we do carve out an inside bar reversal here, harami, I would call this bull rammy, but that's just me. Well, then we'd print out, well, now it looks like the Bulls got the ball. So anyway, there is your market state. And I don't think it should surprise anybody that this looks almost exactly the same as the gold chart, and it looks almost exactly the same as the crude oil chart, because everything's sort of calming down following this absolute horrendous move here in the US dollar index. And now I think the smart thing to do right now is just let this consolidate, let it sort of play itself out. And if anything, you could make the argument the little double bottom if you were short dollars, which I doubt anybody really is, but usually we play it like either through the gold or the oil or Bitcoin or some currency. Then you just act on that event right there, right? So that would be sort of like on this bottom, maybe take some profits in the gold and the oil and Bitcoin and etc.